You've written 2 books, right? Let's pull those out. Let's introduce. If you have them near you, you might not. But
yeah, no, I do somewhere. Oh, there they are. Just a second. Yeah, they're right behind me. There we go.
So Barack Obama versus the Black Hebrew Israelites is...
Yeah, it's like a primer, just a primer on Hebrew Israelism stuff. And then this book, Street Level Apologetics, it's evangelism, apologetics, how to do it in a practical way, especially in the street and urban context and all that kind of stuff. So that one is barely over a year old.
Yeah, so make sure you get that. They can get that at Amazon.
Yeah, they're on Amazon, bookpatch.com, and a lot of digital stores as well, especially the second one. The second one's available in even more places, especially digitally. We increased our digital distribution with that one a lot. Working on a third one as of now, titling it Off the Chart. I'm going to talk about the Hebrew Israelite 12 Tribes chart that the One West type guys use, called Off the Chart.
Okay.
Which they told you, I think, that you didn't fit on the chart, if I'm not mistaken. But
oh man! I suppose one of the interesting things that will become problematic, I think, with groups like this, generally does. I think just religions, you see this, is individuals who sort of like converted into it and have bought into it, and then the kids that are born into it. So the Hebrew Israelism is at a point where you could say potentially third, fourth generations have been born into it, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Is that fair? Yeah. What has that been like in regards to people who've been raised within Hebrew Israelism?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. We don't have, I guess, tons of anecdotal data yet, but the kids are not always as faithful as the adults. But it's almost like where in some households, people raised Christian, they're like, well, yeah, I believe in God, and this and that. There's sort of this residual kind of bare minimum theism, Christian belief. That happens with sometimes the Israelite families, for lack of a better word, where it's like the kids are like, oh, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, but I know I'm an Israelite. That the key thing a lot of times is retained. But, we have some interesting stories with these second generation folks. For example, one person in particular, their father was not just a Hebrew Israelite, but the leader of one of the camps. And this person started reading the Bible and realizing that they had been raised their whole life in a cult. And this person wanted to go to Bible college and essentially was able to use college sort of as an excuse to kind of escape out of the house. It was all kind of very clandestine, but was able to get out of the house, out of the influence from underneath this cult leader that was their father, and is now married to a Christian spouse and a full-out believer in the gospel and very thankful. And the reason I know this is I played a small role in helping the person get into this school, a very small role, but I played somewhat of a role. And it's a pretty significant thing. Now, I wish there was more stories like that, but there's stories like that, So we'll see. We'll see what it results in. I don't know what the future will be with that.
Yeah,
it's a fascinating question.
That's sort of like the cool thing about reading the Bible, like actually giving access to the Bible to people, because if they really want their cult to kind of continue, that's probably not the wisest thing they can do, is just allow people just to read the Bible. Because at one point, if they're thinking and processing and comparing, they're going to realize, wait, what did you just use this thing that doesn't connect in this way? What's going on? It's sort of like the Watchtower Society. So like there is references. Okay, and I don't have it in my hand, but there's references in the Watchtower pamphlets where it says, if you read the Bible on your own, you'll become a Trinitarian. So you need the Watchtower Society to teach you the truth. It's like, okay, that's cool to know, guys. What you need to do, we need you to tell us the wrong stuff, right? And so it's interesting that people would come to that.
You know, you look at this and you see this, and they're following the same playbook in a sense that Jehovah's Witnesses followed, whether it was purposeful or not. But studies, when the Jehovah's Witnesses were having a high conversion rate into their religion, studies show that the main prototypical convert into Jehovah's Witness was someone who was poorly churched. So someone who was kind of Christianized in a way, but was disassociated from the church in some way currently.
Right.
And that's what's going on. Now, not only, though, Hebrew Israelites are getting people sometimes who are invested, and even pastors. There's a video on my channel, Apostolic Pastor Turns Hebrew Israelite. And it's a very kind of standard, kind of guy preaching and doing this, talking about leadership and vision. And then he embraces Hebrew Israelism. And he has a decent YouTube channel. I think he had like 15,000, 17,000 subs. And he does like an online ministry and wrote a book about XYZ. So my point is, like, it's not only those folks, although that's the main demographic they go after, for sure.
Yeah.
People will kind of minimize Hebrew Israelites. Oh, it's a jailhouse religion. I've never done that. You never hear me calling it a jailhouse religion. First of all, that doesn't even speak to something's veracity or not. You know what I mean? But with that being said, it is starting to grow now in populations where people are incarcerated, more so than in the past. Because if you go to the past, it's Orthodox Islam, it's the Nation of Islam, and actually in some places, like where David Wood was locked up, it's the 5 percenters. You haven't seen like this growth of Hebrew Israelism until now. I know at least 2 systems where chaplains have said, man, this is like the new thing that's growing. This is the main thing where I see inmates gravitating towards is this. So I'm not saying it's jailhouse religion. I'm saying that it is starting to grow in those places, which is just another sign of its reach or tentacles, that it's also growing there as well. Yeah. And they'll say, oh, vocab must hate us because these people get cleaned up and fixed and changed. First of all, that's not the case. You have cases where folks are involved with these groups and just as bad as ever. In fact, Thursday, I'm doing a show on a guy who was a member of IUIC, and apparently right before was let go, but I don't know if there's evidence of that. But he was a member just a few months before. That's obvious in Indiana. This is 7 years ago, but I'm going to talk about it because I've never talked about it. And he linked up with a woman who wasn't a woman, but he didn't know that, and ended up shooting the person in the face. And it's a whole story, and then tried to rob the person. So it's like pretty bad. Stuff like that happens in these groups. I'm not saying every day, all the time, and they'll be like, what about the wicked Christian church? Yeah. But the point is, they don't always get cleaned up, so to speak. And the Nation of Islam could say, oh, look, we clean up people too. So this outward cleaning is something Jesus talked about. He said, woe to you, you clean the outside of the cup, but what about the inside of the cup?
Yeah, and then, that's not an argument for something to be truthful. Yeah, it's
not. And like I said, you could see that, Muslims could make some kind of argument like that.
They can, absolutely.
Now they embrace all, now they're not eating pork and they're not drinking alcohol. Why would you not like that? The Nation of Islam obviously could have made that argument prior. And of course, we're forgetting all the changed lives of Christians. From the Christian hip hop group I used to love and listen to, the Gospel Gangsters, their story, to Tom Skinner up out of Harlem, who was in a gang going back in the 60s. To there's a long list of people. My old roommate Sal, who was from Echo Park, LA. There's a whole long list of Christians being changed by Jesus, and it's beautiful to see. Now, so the question is, who's born again for real? What's long lasting, permanent change, and ultimately what's true? So. It's not like, oh, look, they're in the prison. It's just another false religion going in there. That's all it is. And so I just want people to be aware. And those are some of the updates of Hebrew Israelism that you asked about.